Hello everyone, Ed is with you. And today I will give beginners some tips on photographing food. Now we will start, and if you are interested not only in photographing food, but also in subject shooting, then Alexander Steblovsky gave similar advice on his channel. We decided to make a small collaboration with him and share our experience regarding our priority types of shooting. I'll leave a link to his video in the description, tell him hello. And although I have already said more than once that the most important thing for me in photography is light, first of all, but we will start today with equipment. Because it is the choice of equipment, its purchase, its shortage that stops many people from just doing what they love. It is not necessary for you to buy some serious camera, not even necessarily a SLR camera. It doesn't have to be a fresh camera, it doesn't have to buy a super cool lens for it, you can do with what you already have. If you have an entry-level camera with manual settings, with interchangeable or even non-interchangeable lenses, in principle you can use it. Yes, even a good, modern smartphone will allow you to photograph food well. Because food is not something particularly difficult to shoot, but, again, if you have a film camera or you have a very old phone on which you don't like how the camera works, I advise you to upgrade. If you don't have the opportunity now to invest money in buying this or that equipment, for example, some kind of camera, fresh or used ear camera, then you can rent this camera from friends. I'm sure you have a lot of people in your friends who bought themselves expensive equipment and does not remove anything on it. Therefore, I have no doubt that it will be a big problem to ask them to practice for a few days. If you start to succeed and you like it, then you will be able to buy some of your own equipment in order to get more and more practice. The second advice, with regard to the equipment, I will have about the use of tripods. It is not necessary to use some expensive convenient tripod for taking photos. You can take the most ordinary tripod like this, Chinese. Of course, I don't really recommend buying a new one, because it costs about the same as the tripod on which I have the camera now, but you can either buy a used one, because if nothing has fallen off yet, then most likely it will last you long enough. If you want to buy a new one, if you have a certain budget for this matter, then wait literally a week. I will release an overview of the tripod that my camera is currently shooting from, and perhaps you will like it and you will buy it. What opportunities does the tripod offer us? Firstly, it's winter now, December. And even though the day has already started to increase, that is, the longest night of the year has passed, thank God, and now the day will only arrive, but it still persists. A terrible trend. Right now I have about 5 o'clock in the evening. I just took off a little bit of B-roll in order to show you with what settings I have to shoot now with the light from the window, which is right behind this background 25600. The ISO I had was 25,600. Just now you will see these shots, don't worry. What can I say? The tripod will protect the most beginners from stirring and greasing from shaking with their hands. Because if you still don't know how to hold the camera in your hands, if you don't choose the settings well, if you shoot in low light, use a longer shutter speed, then the tripod will save you at the same time. For those who are more advanced in this regard, who already know how to shoot with their hands, a tripod will help in compositional terms. When you take it off your hands you don't have the opportunity, exactly from the same position, exactly from the same angle, to shoot some composition. Therefore, if you are going to shoot composite frames, a tripod will allow you to control your composition thoroughly and shift some elements of the composition by millimeters. What will lead you to a good result faster than when you jump and take pictures with your hands by moving something and not getting into the same angle that you already liked. That is, it saves time. Well, for those who already. A tripod can also do all this when gluing frames together, when you need to illuminate one frame with one light source from two different sides, for example, if you have a shortage of equipment, or when you shoot compositions with several dishes or several drinks. And then you need to combine all these frames into one, because all the objects in the frame do not fit into your sharpness. I have a tilt-shift lens for this, and just this week we discussed that it is not always enough. I'm going to insert 3 pictures here now. These are pictures with drinks that had to be removed with such a wedge end. Even a tilt-shift lens specialized for this case would not have helped me in this case, because I had to focus on 3 different plans, on the foreground, on 2 middle and on 2 distant drinks. And then combine all these frames in Photoshop. It's almost impossible to do this without a tripod. Therefore, a tripod will also help a lot in this. And so, let's go back now, after all, to the most basic thing. In my opinion, what there is in general in photography is of course light. What advice will I have in this? Use only the light that you can control. By control, I mean, diffuse, reflect, redirect this light. If you have a window facing, for example, to the north side, or if the weather is cloudy, you are very lucky, because such a diffused soft light through the window will give a very pleasant picture to the eye, but still the shadows can be quite hard, then they will need to be reflected. You can use anything for reflection. I often use, well, of course, ordinary reflectors, because it is always more convenient to open a large convenient reflector on a commercial shooting. Take it off, then roll it up, put it in a bag and transport it safely, but, previously, and even now in the studio, I use ceiling tiles a lot. These are such sheets of white foam, absolutely colorless, which allow you to conveniently reflect light. I also bought another package of some kind of floor sealer and it is just the same foam, just its size is much larger. I plan to cut it into the pieces I need and use it as well as ceiling tiles. In principle, any piece of paper, Whatman, and so on will do. Foil cardboard, and some packages from Fish are also well suited, people suggest using. I use caps a lot for containers for delivery. That is, in a restaurant, order some food for delivery or takeaway, they remove the foil container in such a container and cover it with a lid. This is a cardboard box and on the one hand it is white, on the other just foil, very convenient, very cool. It is easy to hold these reflectors with similar clothespins. Everything is fine. More about controlled light. I highly do not recommend shooting with ceiling lighting, because you, firstly, do not control it, secondly, there is most likely not one and not a large lamp. If it is, God forbid, directed, it will be multiple shadows in your frame. This is all very bad. It's better not to mess with this right away. Turn off all the lights, shoot only from the window. If there is no light now, you can even take an ordinary desk lamp, direct it to a tracing paper sheet and get a light source. And if you are shooting from a tripod, then this is enough for you to shoot some small composition. If you have already mastered all this and have a good command of the available types of light, I think it's time for you to try artificial light. What are the types of artificial light? It is divided into constant light and pulsed light. I recommend a constant light for photographing food only to those who are willing to invest a lot of money in it and to whom it is critical to shoot a video. Yes, by the way, speaking of constant light, I'm not telling you about construction of some kind of floodlights or other such stuff. I'm talking about light, in principle, for professional use for videography. This is an LED light. Why can it be used for food? Because it is not heated at all, it has enough power to adjustments to achieve some light patterns. I'm shooting a video right now. I have two sources of constant light. They cost in proportion to the flashes, but they are much, much less suitable for photographing than the flashes. Because the flash gives out a much more powerful pulse. Therefore, if you plan to move only in the direction of photography and you need flashes, then be sure to take one. Take one as the first artificial light source, even if you are ready to take 2, 3, 5, 7, and so on, use one. You can buy several at once, but start using only one. Why? Because it will give you a faster understanding of how light affects different surfaces, different textures of objects, different dishes. How can you disperse it, how can you reflect it, how can you direct it rigidly, and then, in the future, you will need all this knowledge in order to build a color scheme using multiple light sources. Right now, for example, as a contour I use a bare LED panel, with a yellow warm filter, in order to separate me from the background, and a huge parabolic umbrella shines on me. It is 1.5 meters long and an LED panel also shines into it. Also, one of the most important tips I can give you on the part of the light is its direction. Never direct the light from the camera side, it kills the entire volume. Also, this advice includes such tips as, do not shoot with a camera flash, do not shoot with a flash built into your camera, and do not shoot if you are shooting with a phone, do not shoot with a backlight in any case, because, it all kills the volume. You have just seen some shots that prove these words of mine to you. It is best to shoot in a background light, either in the side or in the rear side. My most favorite light scheme includes the main source, which is located at 3 o'clock. That is, it shines, I'm standing here, I have a dish on the table, and the source is standing there and I'm taking pictures from my side. That is, from me the dish is for 12 hours, and the source is for 3. Well, I'll show you some scheme now. This is the best option. The glaring surface is not so much glaring yet, but the volume is transmitted best. Although, in this case, the front part of the dish will be very darkened. And then our reflectors, which we just talked about, come into play. Be sure to use them, depending on how much you want a contrasting bright picture. Use foil or a silver reflector, and if you want a softer reflected light, then use white surfaces, paper, foam, it doesn't matter anymore. If we have already agreed with you that I advise you a flash, I advise you not a speedlight, not a camera flash, namely a monoblock flash. In the description I will add a link to all the equipment that I recommend for purchase. You can sort it out there are links to eBay, and you can order by very low prices for equipment. If anything, you can write to me in the comments, or in a personal account, in any social networks convenient to you. I will tell you something by choice. And so, you chose the flash. What kind of light modifier should you choose? These are the things that are put on the flash, using special mounting, as well as the lenses on the camera are attached via a bayonet. And you need to decide which light modifier do you need first. I advise you to always buy a large softbox. The bigger the softbox, the more forgiving it is, the softer the light and the more it looks like our light from the window. If you have been shooting from a window with natural light for a long time, then a large softbox will allow you to quickly and easily switch to shooting with artificial lighting. Having lost as a picture. A lot of people buy, for example, 2 or 3 light sources, buy some umbrellas for reflections or take them off with reflectors, and say that they like natural light much more than this artificial pulsed one. Yes, why do you need it, only when it's completely dark? I don't like the picture from it. Friends, you just don't know how to use it. If you listen to my advice, most likely you will not have such problems. If you have one flash, there will be a large softbox on it. This will be the most perfect option for simulating natural lighting, diffused and soft light. It needs to be reflected onto the subject with the help of those reflectors that we have already talked about. This will be an ideal option for you to get acquainted with pulsed lighting. As soon as you master this option, you will be able to buy some more complex modifiers. You can buy, for example, a reflector, strip boxes. You can buy frost. This is a special scattering material that probably uses more in subject shooting, but when shooting glasses, or a glaring surface, it is very useful. We talked about light, in principle. Let's stop a little at the angles. What can I say about the angles and the shooting itself in general? Don't start with something complicated right away. Start shooting some very simple compositions. You can on a monochrome background. Remove the plate from the dish. Today we just took pictures of flakes in a bowl, nothing complicated, but there is already some kind of picture. We have also already talked about shooting from a tripod. If you are going to remove from it, then put the dishes first and only then add props and make intermediate shots. That is, you added something made a frame, Then you will be able to easily assess what is superfluous for you in the end and will also be able to assess whether it is too much with the props at all. And, as I said, you can glue several frames together. For example, you are the second. You have added some kind of fork, and then you want to remove it. In Photoshop, you can combine these several intermediate frames in such a way that you do not have this fork in the photo. And, of course, experiment and enjoy the process. Experiment especially with camera angles. I really like to make large shots, but there are also some highlights, for example, ceviche or carpaccio, such flat dishes, or the same pizza, they look better from above, and a good old burger or a mug of beer, they don't look like anything from above and, of course, it's better to shoot them from the side. And finally, the advice is probably the same motivating as Sasha's. Don't let anyone or anything stop you from doing what you love. If food photography is what you want to develop in, if it's what you like to do, then no matter what, just do it and gradually, you will no longer have all the questions, what to shoot, which lens to buy, which tripod to choose, with what light, and so on. You will just shoot, you will stumble upon some limitations of your equipment and you will immediately understand 100% that you need to buy the following. And a little more about the law and the rules, and so on. Photography is creativity. If you don't plan to make money with it yet, and I should have advised you first of all, don't spoil such a wonderful hobby. Commerce. If you don't plan to earn money by photography yet, this is a wonderful hobby, a wonderful way of self-expression, and you can use it. The main thing is that you like it. You should like your photos. If you like them, no laws, no rules apply to them. If you want your photos, like with others, if you want money to be paid for them, then you will have to adjust to what the market wants now, and that's a completely different story. More delicious shots for you, take pictures more often, ask your questions in the comments. Subscribe to this channel and be sure to watch Sasha's video. He told his tips about subject photography there. Bye, everyone.